Hey, good morning, friends. Welcome to The Bright Side. I am Pharmacist Ben. Thanks for joining us. Our number 844-236-6010. We love hearing from you. If you have questions, comments, success stories you'd like to share, or if you just want to contribute to the conversation, 844-236-6010 is our number on The Bright Side. If you want to purchase longevity products, call 866-735-2470, 866-735-2470, or head to brightsideben.com, pharmacistben.com, or criticalhealthnews.com. You can purchase all your favorite longevity products right off the website. You can also click on the Join the Team link at brightsideben.com, pharmacistben.com, or criticalhealthnews.com if you want to sign up to join the Brightside Ben team and start a home-based business helping spread the word about the power and importance of a good nutritional supplement program. And now's a golden opportunity to at least think about starting a home-based business with all the economic uncertainty here and on the horizon. There's no better time than the present to start a home-based business if you are intrigued, or if you're an entrepreneur, or if you like the nutrition business, or if nutrition has helped you in your life and you want to help pay it forward and make a little bit of money at the same time. Call 866-735-2470 for more info, or click on the Join the Team link at brightsideben.com, pharmacistben.com, or criticalhealthnews.com. Also, would like to remind you to check out our Facebook page, The Bright Side with Pharmacist Ben. It's a great way to stay in touch with us. You can ask questions, and all of the Brightside episodes, all Brightside episodes are posted after they air by my good friend Kevin Peterson in Russia, who posts all our Brightside episodes on YouTube, and then they're on our Facebook page, which you can check out, The Bright Side with Pharmacist Ben. Okay, we've got Dr. Michael Lewis coming up in our third segment at the bottom of the hour. Dr. Lewis is the author of several books. We're going to talk about CBD and Alzheimer's disease, CBD and brain health. Dr. Lewis has authored books about brain health involving omega fatty acids. His website, by the way, is drmichaellewismd.com. He is the author of When Brains Collide, What Every Athlete and Parent Should Know About the Prevention and Treatment of Concussions and Head Injuries. And he's come up with a very interesting protocol utilizing omega-3 fatty acids for helping folks deal with concussions and traumatic brain injury or head injuries. Omega-3 fatty acids, of course, are anti-inflammatory, so it makes perfect sense that omega-3s could be used for head injuries as well as other health challenges that involve inflammation. Dr. Lewis has authored chapters in various medical textbooks and has been involved and presented over 100 abstracts at scientific and medical conferences, all involving inflammation and omegas and fatty acids. And now his latest focus of research is on CBD and the endocannabinoid system. I've been fascinated with the endocannabinoid system myself as a pharmacist since I learned about it in pharmacy school in the 1980s. I was blown away by the idea that there were actually, when I first heard about it, I just couldn't believe that you had marijuana receptors in your brain. That's how I thought of it when I was in pharmacy school. Is you had receptors in your brain and in your body, not just your brain, not just the nervous system, but pretty much all cells of the body have receptor sites for cannabinoids. And I just found that to be so unbelievable and so fascinating. And since I've been studying the endocannabinoid system since then, that's going on 35 years now. Anyway, Dr. Michael Lewis will talk to us about cannabidiol, which is one of hundreds of various cannabinoid compounds that are found in the hemp plant and found in the marijuana plant and found, by the way, in rosemary and oregano and sage, found in hops, found all over nature. We talk about the hemp plant and the marijuana plant as being sources of cannabinoids, and indeed the hemp and marijuana plants are probably the richest sources of the cannabinoids, but cannabinoids are found in all kinds of herbs and plant material. CBD is one of the cannabinoids, cannabidiol. It's the one that's been getting all the press and all the publicity for the last, probably 10, 15 years or so. CBD is anti-inflammatory like all the cannabinoids. CBD is calming like the cannabinoids. It's got benefits for sleep and for pain and for anxiety and for depression. Just so many different ways that you can benefit from the cannabinoids. By the way, the Hemp FX line from Longevity features cannabinoids, and there's several Hemp FX products if you want to dabble in them or check them out, especially for sleep. They're especially effective for sleep. And if you're interested in self-medicating with CBD, you might want to check out the Hemp FX products. We'll talk to Dr. Michael Lewis about CBD and the nervous system, and I am also going to talk to Dr. Michael Lewis, about the endocannabinoids and the immune system. We had Judy Mikovits on a couple of weeks ago. We're going to have her back on hopefully sometime this month. And her specialty, well, she's got many specialties actually. We talked about vaccines with her, but I want to really talk to her about her research on the endocannabinoid system and the immune system, how you can use cannabinoids to help boost immunity. All the stuff now in the news about ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine and vaccines and ways that you can medically induce protection or medically protect yourself from viral infections, from the viral infection. It seems like we may want to explore some non-pharmaceutical strategies, and you're not going to hear about them on through the mainstream media, that's for sure. But it turns out there's wonderful non-pharmaceutical, non-medical strategies that you can use to build your immune system. We talked a lot about beta-glucan last week and the week before, and indeed mushrooms in general, which are a great source of beta-glucan, can have super therapeutic effects against COVID-19. And that's literal. I'm not exaggerating here. This is from a paper from the Scandinavian Journal of Immunology. Can medicinal mushrooms have prophylactic or therapeutic effect against COVID-19 and superinfection and complicating inflammation? Well, there's lots of compounds and lots of great compounds in COVID-19, and beta-glucan is one of them. One of the most powerful of the immune-boosting mushrooms is something called Agaricus blazei murale, and that's what this article is about. Agaricus blazei murale, or ABM, has been shown to significantly reduce bacteria and increase survival in mice with pneumococcal sepsis and to improve symptoms and quality of life via an anti-inflammatory effect. Hence, mushroom extracts could have therapeutic effect against the pneumonic superinfection and severe lung inflammation that often complicates COVID-19. For the life of me, I don't know why we are not talking more about the power of mushrooms and the power of beta-glucan for boosting the immune system. Mushrooms are so amazing. They're ubiquitous. They're everywhere. They're nature's digestive system. That's their role in the ecosystem. They secrete enzymes that decompose leaves and needles and wood and forest litter. They decompose anything, really. And this decomposing power of mushrooms is a function of their need for nutrients. They break down substances so they can get nutrition. They essentially eat organic matter, and they act like a digestive system, like nature's digestive system. They don't have any chlorophyll, like plants have chlorophyll. So they get energy from the sun. Fungi, the fungal kingdom, mushrooms are part of the fungal kingdom, depend on other organic matter for their survival. That's why you'll always see mushroom and fungus growing on other things in the form of what we call rot, or sometimes we call it mold. That rot or that mold is essentially the transference of energy that's trapped on dead matter, or trapped in dead matter, into themselves. They're transferring the energy that's in the dead matter into themselves and ultimately into the soil. That's why they play such a vital, vital role in the ecosystem. All right, I'm Pharmacist Ben. 844-236-6010 is our number. We'll be back on the bright side right after this. Okay, we're back on the bright side. Lines open for you. 844-236-6010. 844-236-6010. If you have questions, comments, success stories you'd like to share, or if you just want to contribute to the conversation, we'll be speaking to Dr. Michael Lewis at the bottom of the hour. Dr. Lewis is the author of a book about omega-3s and traumatic brain injury, when brains collide, what every athlete and parent should know about the prevention and treatment of concussions and head injuries. His website, Dr. Michael Lewis, MD. His latest focus of research is on the cannabinoid system, specifically CBD, cannabidiol. We'll talk to Dr. Michael Lewis about the brain, the nervous system, and the cannabinoids, and how you can use CBD to deal with things like obsessive-compulsive disorder, sleep disorders, depression, anxiety. CBD and the cannabinoids in general activate the parasympathetic nervous system. They have a relaxing effect on the body, and this is why they have such a, in biochemistry, we say pluripotent effect. That means they have many, many, many effects. Pluripotent means they do lots of things. Sometimes you'll hear the word pleiotropic. Pleiotropic and pluripotent refers to substances that have lots and lots of benefits, and the CBD and the cannabinoids in general meet that criteria. We'll talk to Dr. Lewis about CBD and brain health at the bottom of the hour. We'll get your calls in this segment. Speaking of brain health and speaking of mushrooms, did you know you can use mushrooms to help prevent early Alzheimer's disease? According to an article in the Frontiers of Medicine, prevention of early Alzheimer's disease by Hericium erinaceus, also known as lion's mane. Really interesting looking mushroom that's got long spines, and it looks exactly like a lion's mane. And according to this article, folks who ingested who went through a 3-week protocol of 5 milligrams of Hericium erinaceus mushroom, three 5 milligram capsules per day, appeared to have significantly less amyloid plaques, which are one of the symptoms of Alzheimer's disease. And researchers concluded that folks who took the mushrooms demonstrated higher test scores, in contrast with folks who were on the placebo. Alzheimer's disease is one of those tragic health challenges that is so unnecessary. Even if folks are dealing with Alzheimer's disease, even if they're going through it, they can still improve their symptoms. Do you know if you're going through the worst form of Alzheimer's disease, and I know my dad had it, so I have some personal experience with it, if you just put somebody on the Beyond Tangy Tangerine, you can immediately, right in front of your eyes, change that person's prognosis, just with the Beyond Tangy Tangerine. In many ways, Alzheimer's disease is the manifestation of long-term nutritional deficiencies in combination with toxicity. Long-term degeneration associated with deficiencies and toxicities. That means as soon as you restore nutrients and as soon as you remove toxicity, and by toxicity I am including sugar, which is the main toxin that's associated with Alzheimer's disease, your patient or your family member or friend or loved one, whoever it is, can manifest dramatically improved symptoms right in front of your eyes. One of the greatest gifts you can give somebody who has AD, Alzheimer's disease, or somebody who's frail and fragile, or somebody who's just experiencing cognitive decline as they get older. It doesn't have to be full-blown Alzheimer's disease, is the gift of Beyond Tangy Tangerine. If we really cared about health, everybody in the nursing home would be on Beyond Tangy Tangerine. It's that powerful. And I'm not saying that to sell Beyond Tangy Tangerine. I'm saying that as a healthcare professional. It's negligent to deprive an older adult in a nursing home, or somebody who's dealing with cognitive decline issues, or somebody who's dealing with AD, Alzheimer's disease, of nutrition. And also, and Beyond Tangy Tangerine, it's not merely nutrition, it's electrolyte nutrition, so important for brain health, and it's liquid, so it goes right to work. You can also, if you're also looking for another strategy to help somebody who's dealing with Alzheimer's disease or cognitive decline, is get them off the sugar. And that includes bread and pasta and cereals, not to mention soda pop and fruit juices. I couldn't believe what they were feeding people. When I was visiting my dad when he was in the nursing home, I couldn't believe what they were feeding him. Every meal had apple juice in it. And this poor man was dealing with all kinds of cognitive issues, and you can't change it. I mean, as a relative of the patient, I had to go through the physician to tell him not to have apple juice. Anyway, N-acetylcysteine for retinitis pigmentosa. I absolutely love N-acetylcysteine. I've loved that one for years. I take personally 1,000 to 2,000 milligrams of it a day. N-acetylcysteine is a key component of the glutathione molecule. Cysteine is a key component of the glutathione molecule, glutathione being the master antioxidant. And by the way, glutathione is a very underappreciated immune system booster for folks who are thinking about using nutrition to prevent COVID, or who are dealing with a COVID infection. Again, demonstrating the utter bankruptcy of the medical model. When do you ever hear about using glutathione or glutathione building strategies for helping folks deal with viral infections? Let me think. Never. Never. Even people who understand alternative medicine are focusing on things like ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine. I got a note yesterday from a good friend of mine who is very hip to the problems with the medical model. She has an author of a book, a very interesting book, and she's had personal experiences with health challenges that were not being treated by standard medicine. And she sent me a video and a bunch of literature on how important ivermectin was for folks to prevent, or as a prophylactic treatment for COVID. Ivermectin, by the way, is a dewormer. And it's not one of the worst drugs you could take. There's definitely worse drugs, but nonetheless, it's a nasty drug, like all drugs. But now there are actually physicians and people who should know better who are saying to use ivermectin prophylactically, meaning even if you're not sick, just to prevent yourself from getting sick. Let me be clear here. It's bad enough to take a drug when you have to take a drug and you don't have any alternatives, but to take a drug for prevention is absurd. And it represents a complete misunderstanding of how the body deals with pharmaceuticals. Yes, it's true that ivermectin is probably not one of the most deadly drugs there is. It's not a good drug, but there's worse. Nonetheless, when you take ivermectin, your body has to mobilize its vitamin C. It has to mobilize its B complex. It has to mobilize its copper and its magnesium, among other nutrients, its essential fatty acids, get redirected towards what? Towards detoxifying and eliminating and breaking that down. That means you have less B vitamins to fight disease. That means you have less vitamin C to build connective tissue. That means you have less magnesium for your circulatory system and for your heart and for your brain. How is that possibly a good thing? Especially when we can boost our immunity in a healthy way by using glutathione-building substances, by using N-acetylcysteine, by using magnesium and vitamin C, by laying off the sugar, by jumping on a rebounder, by meditating. It's almost endless. Literally, it's almost endless, the strategies that we can employ to support our health and to support our immune system. And all we hear about is drugs and vaccines and medicalization. It's so unfair and it's so anti-human. I was on a podcast last week with a physician, and he was a nice guy, but he hadn't heard of any of these ideas. He'd heard of vitamin D, but he didn't even know what glutathione was, let alone its importance for building the immune system. Nice guy, I don't mean to attack him, but it's crazy how little understanding we have in our drugged up, pharmaceuticalized, medicalized world. But it's up to us. It's up to us as patients, and it's up to us as the loved ones of patients to take the ball into our own court. You don't need to be medicalized to protect yourself from a viral infection. You don't need to be medicalized even if you have a viral infection, unless it gets really, really severe. You don't need to be medicalized for the most part, period, unless you have some kind of severe trauma or severe infection. All right. Dr. Michael Lewis coming up next. We're going to talk about brain health and CBD. You're listening to The Bright Side. We'll be back after this.
Silver.
Okay, we are back on The Bright Side. I'm Pharmacist Ben. Thanks for joining us. We're on the air Monday through Friday, 8 to 9 Pacific and 10 to 11 Central Time and 24/7 on the archive page at benfuchsarchives.com. Thank you to Peter in the UK for setting that one up. We also have archives at brightsideben.com with a search engine and all the longevity products at brightsideben.com, pharmacistben.com, and criticalhealthnews.com. Got news stories, blog posts, and join the team link that you can click on if you want to start a home-based business. And also, please check out our Truth Skin Health products, all formulated in my compounding pharmacy for healing wounds. Wound healing equals beauty. And that's what Truth Treatments are all about, and that's why we have 1,500 4- and 5-star reviews, which you can check out at truthreviewed.com. Truthtreatments.com for all of our Truth Treatment products, and truthreviewed.com for our 1,500 4- and 5-star reviews. All right, I'm looking forward to speaking to our guest. Dr. Michael Lewis is a researcher. He's the president of the Brain Health Education and Research Institute, which he founded in 2011. He's the author of a book on brain injury, brain health and brain injury, called When Brains Collide. His specialty is omega-3s, and he's an expert on nutritional interventions for brain health, particularly for brain injuries. Please welcome to The Bright Side, Dr. Michael Lewis. Hey, Dr. Lewis.
Hey, it's great to be with you.
It's great to have you on. I got to tell you, I've been studying CBD and the cannabinoids since 1986, and I've been absolutely fascinated with them. And I've been very excited in the last 5 or 10 years that they've been out in the mainstream. So tell us your take on CBD and how it functions as a pseudo-nutrition. I don't want to say nutritional substance, but as a pseudo-nutritional substance in terms of, number one, its relationship to omega-3 fatty acids, and number two, for its therapeutic benefits for the nervous system.
Well, how many hours do we have? I mean, that's a whole semester's worth of information right there.
Succinctly.
I mean, it's, cannabinoids, well, the cannabis plant, let me put it this way, has been around for thousands of years. Every major society, culture in the history of mankind has used cannabis in a variety of ways, everything from recreational to medicinal. And like you said, it's just been in the last 20 or so years that we've really been able to understand it from more of a scientific level that we can appreciate. And it's really been fascinating. I came at it from the military, where the military still does not allow the use of it. And so I didn't discover it until after I retired. And it's been a fascinating learning experience for me. And what's really been fascinating is that interaction, as you mentioned, between the omegas, not just omega-3s, but omega-6s, and our actual cannabinoid receptors that we've come with. I mean, every mammal with a backbone has cannabinoid receptors, and we just learned about them in the last couple of decades.
Do you suspect that there's a relationship between essential fatty acid deficiency and cannabinoid deficiency?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, so you have to realize, so nature didn't give us these cannabinoid receptors for the cannabis plant. I mean, it just doesn't quite, that would be a little too convenient. We have these endogenous cannabinoid molecules that our body makes on our own. And the main one that we know the most about, and the first one discovered, is called anandamide, for short. It's got a long chemical name, but anandamide, which means bliss molecule in Sanskrit. And the best thing about it is, or the interesting thing about it is, it's made from omega-6, from arachidonic acid. And so it's made from arachidonic acid, and it's broken back down into arachidonic acid. The thing about CBD is that it actually, one of the main ways it interacts with serotonin receptors and other receptors, but the biggest thing is this happy molecule, this bliss molecule, anandamide, CBD keeps it from getting broken down. So it interrupts the process of breaking it down, so it keeps our happy molecules around longer.
Is that how it exhibits its anxiolytic and relaxing and its antidepressant effects?
Well, absolutely. And, we now know that the runner's high, if you will, that feeling that you get from intense exercise, that's all great. And we used to always call it a runner's high, and we said it was this endorphin rush. Yeah. Well, it's not. It's not endorphin.
Really?
It's anandamide. That's what's causing the runner's high, and the interaction with these receptors in our brain that keep us happy. So it's like the equalizer on your old stereo. The cannabinoid system, our internal cannabinoid system. So it's not the volume control, it's not the tuning, it's the fine-tuning of like an equalizer system. So that it kind of keeps our body in sync and fine-tuned, if you will.
Are there things we do in our lives as part of our lifestyle that act to suppress the cannabinoid system, and are there things we could do to enhance it? Not supplementing, just in terms of how we live our lives.
Well, absolutely, and enhancing it. I tried to look at the positive side of things. So let's talk about enhancing the endogenous cannabinoid system, or endocannabinoid system for short, or ECS for even shorter. It's basically influenced by diet and exercise. And that can be either in a positive direction or it can be in a negative direction, as you can imagine. So, let's stick on the positive side. If you're exercising on a regular basis and you're eating healthy and getting enough of your omega-3s in particular, but, your omegas and your good fats and eating healthy, that's going to support your endogenous cannabinoid system.
Now, when you say exercise, are you saying, like, exercise you'll make more cannabinoids in response to exercise? And is there a certain type of exercise, aerobic versus, say, resistance training?
Well, intense exercise is probably the best way to put it. And so that can be in intervals. If you're running marathons, you're doing a lot of damage to your body. There's a lot of reactive oxygenation going on, a lot of free radicals being generated. I'm not a big fan of long aerobic type of exercise because it causes too many problems. And, it's great for some people; they love it, and that's their mental escape or whatever. But for most of us, it's not really a healthy way to go. So you get much more out of quick, intense exercises, and that's how our bodies were designed. To run away from that tiger when you came around the corner. Not run a marathon to, what happened to the first guy that ran a marathon in Greece? He delivered the news and dropped over dead. So, I kind of look at that as like, which do you want? So, intense exercise, shorter is better. It's why this high intensity interval training has become very popular, because it's easier on the body, but you get the same benefits for your metabolism as well as your mental health. And so I'm a big fan of trying to get, do something daily And particularly weightlifting or resistance training is becoming more recognized as more and more important, even more so than aerobic exercise.
What's the relationship between cortisol and the cannabinoids? Is there an antagonistic relationship there?
Well, it's cortisol can decrease the effects of the cannabinoid system, and so cortisol is just like adrenaline. It's got a purpose, to fight or flight kind of thing. But long term, it's like chemical insults to our body that hurt our immune system and our endogenous cannabinoid system.
All right, we got to take a break. When we come back, I want to talk about the immune system and the cannabinoids, especially in light of all the stuff that's going on today. We got Dr. Michael Lewis on the bright side. We'll be back right after this. Don't go away. Back on the bright side, we're talking to Dr. Michael Lewis, Dr. Colonel Michael Lewis, author of the book When Brains Collide. We're talking about CBD and the cannabinoid system, the endocannabinoid system. I want to talk about the immunity, Dr. Lewis, and the cannabinoids. Before you get into that, I'm kind of curious. Did you have any kind of pushback on doing CBD research when you were in the military, or were you doing CBD research?
I didn't even know what CBD was when I was in the military. So it wasn't until a couple of years after I had retired, I had gotten involved in omega-3 research with the military and during my time in the military, and turned out that some of the key people in one of the companies I was advising moved over to the CBD industry and said, hey, come take a look at this stuff. And that's how I got introduced to it. I knew nothing about it. I had to, wow. It was a great learning experience for me. And what was more fascinating is when I figured out there was this great connection between the omegas and the cannabinoids.
Yeah. You hadn't heard of the endocannabinoid system as a neurotransmitter system?
Not at all.
Got it.
I graduated medical school before it was even discovered. So, so it certainly wasn't taught in medical school when I was there.
Do you think it will ever go mainstream to the point where it's in the military? The military recognizes its importance or relevance?
Well, I hope so. I mean, they're certainly aware of it. They don't allow it, but they're certainly aware of it. And I think as federal law changes in regards to cannabis in general, that it's going to be harder and harder for them to ignore it.
So let's talk about the immune system. I imagine there's an important connection between the cannabinoids and immunity.
Well, there really is. And again, it's that fine-tuning, that equalizer kind of fine-tuning system of not just our nervous system, but our immune system as well. In fact, it's so intricately. Wow, I'm struggling on my ability to say that. Anyway, it's so intimately tied to the immune system that the second type of receptors that were discovered, or what we call the cannabinoid type 2 receptors, are actually associated almost exclusively with the immune system itself. And so the CB1 receptors are associated with neurotissue or brain tissue and nerve tissue. So they're more concentrated in the brain, but also, throughout the body. But the CB2 type receptors are associated with the immune system. So they're the greatest concentration, of course, is going to be in our gut, in our intestines. That's the greatest immune concentration as far as function is our gut, for pretty obvious reasons, to be able to digest food that's not going to kill us. And but there's also CB2 receptors in our brain that helps control brain inflammation as well. So it's the CB2 receptors have everything to do with controlling the amount of inflammation that goes on, not just in the brain but throughout the body.
So when you say they're exclusively in the immune system, do you mean they're on macrophages and white blood cells and neutrophils, et cetera, or are you talking about inflammatory reactions?
It's mostly inflammatory reactions, but also they're much more intimately tied to not just, and both. is the short answer. So they're tied to the cells of the immune system, but also they help control the inflammatory reaction. So inflammation, we want to vilify inflammation, and that's not the right thing. Inflammation is life. You got to have inflammation.
Mm-hmm.
If you get injured, you need inflammation to help get all the repair cells in there to do their job, get all the bad stuff out of there, and so inflammation is absolutely life. The problem is that our bodies are so out of balance.
Yeah.
That we don't resolve the inflammation like we should. And that becomes a talk about the balance of omega-3s and omega-6s, because the downstream effects of omega-3s are to help resolve the inflammation, and downstream effects of omega-6s promote inflammation. And so it's kind of an interesting thing, but the anandamide and the internal endogenous cannabinoids are made from and broken down into omega-6s. So if we keep them from getting broken down, it not only keeps us happier, but it helps with the immune response as well.
So CBD has inflammatory and anti-inflammatory effects?
No,
the
CBD.
The cannabinoids.
No, the cannabinoids have both effects.
That's interesting.
And so what CBD does is help keep one of the ways that it acts, and there's numerous ways that we're discovering, and more being discovered all the time, is to keep the endogenous cannabinoids around longer. And so if you're keeping them around longer doing their job, then they're not getting broken down into these pro-inflammatory omega-6s.
What do you know about the other forms of other cannabinoids, like CBN, for example? There's a lot of people talking about CBD versus CBN, and CBN's getting a lot of press now. Cannabinol.
Well, there's
and CBG and other ones.
I keep hearing that they now believe there's over 100 or even 120 different types of cannabinoids in the cannabis plant that have been discovered. Some of them are so minute, so little that the concentration that they're there's no reason that they why we don't know much about them is because they're in such microscopic levels, and so that becomes quite the issue. How do you study something like that? In some cases, it might be like 0.01% as far as of the cannabinoids in the plant. So it's really hard to say. CBG is kind of one of the more interesting ones for me, because that is what they consider sort of a mother type of molecule, as in most of the cannabinoids, they believe that a lot of the cannabinoids start as CBG and then differentiate, or almost like the stem cells, if you will, of cannabinoids. That CBG is the mother stem cell that then gets made into CBD and even THC and other types of cannabinoids. But CBG is that mother of all cannabinoids, if you will.
So where does THC fit into the deal? Do you get the same kind of anti-inflammatory and immune boosting benefits that you do that you do with CBD?
Well, I'm not a big fan of THC because the psychoactive effects of THC, which is why people have used cannabis recreationally, is because they want the THC. They want the psychoactive effects of that. You don't get that from any of the other, or very few of the other cannabinoids, like CBD and CBG and CBN and CBC and all these alphabet soups. They're not psychoactive like THC. And I've just seen too many patients over my career that, particularly young females, that have complete psychotic breaks from exposure to THC. So I'm not a big fan of it. It's not to say that there's not medicinal value to THC. In fact, it's believed that a trace amount of THC actually helps potentiate the effect of CBD and some of the other cannabinoids. You get that entourage effect, if you will.
I've also heard that CBD can kind of antagonize THC a little bit if you do too much THC. Have you heard that?
It does. It's the antidote, actually. So,
Yeah.
So if you look at the chemical structure of anandamide, which basically THC mimics the effect of the interaction with that CB1 receptor. So anandamide and THC are not the same chemical structure. So while anandamide is this perfect lock and key kind of fit with the CB1 receptor, THC is not that perfect fit, but it's good enough to get into that receptor. And what happens is that CBD comes along and kind of hits the side of the receptor, and the THC is just enough not good fit that when CBD hits the side of the receptor, it knocks the THC off. So it actually can be the antidote, if you will, for THC or THC overdosing.
Dr. Lewis, we're out of time, but I just want to ask you, what's a good protocol for somebody if they want to start using CBD? We only have like 30 seconds.
I like the plus CBD line of plus CBD oil line of products, mainly of a huge part because of the quality, but also because it comes in soft gels. And they're really easy to take, and you know exactly what you get. And no, everybody's dose is different. So I say get the gold soft gels and start with one in the morning and one in the evening and see how it affects you, and then adjust the dose or the timing or both.
Doc, we're out of time. Thank you so much for being on The Bright Side. Dr. Michael Lewis, his website, Dr. Michael Lewis, MD. Thanks for listening to The Bright Side, friends. We'll talk to you later, folks. Bye for now.